Hi, everyone. If you can hear us, say hello in the chat. If you can hear and see us. Welcome, welcome. Please say hello in the chat and tell us where you're joining us from. Hi, Toyota. Hello. Where are you guys joining us from? Hi, Tracy. Bryn, I hope I'm saying that properly. Wow. Port St. Lucie. I love how that sounds. I want to be there in Florida.
I'm just getting goosebumps. Like a bunch of my tribe is joining today. So thank you so much for coming.
Yay! Hi, everyone. Tell us hello and where you're joining us from. Tracy, Dawsonville. Toyota, you're in Alpharetta again. You must live there.
Oh, love you guys.
All right, so we're gonna start. Let's go for one more minute and then we're gonna start. So exciting. Oh, you're at work. Okay. Let's see who else is joining us. Glenda, hello. Chloe, hi. Keyshawn, hi. Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is so exciting.
Hi. Hi, Raquel. Hi, Serenia. Hi, Justin. Hi, Conchata.
So we'd love to hear what you're curious about as you're joining. What do you want to learn today? What do you want to take away from this? Thank you for joining. Stephanie, hi. Marianne, oh my gosh, it's so good to see so many people. Raquel, hi. That's an X1 digital person, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Wow. We have a lot of One Digital people. It's so good to see you all. Okay, so we're at 2:03. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. If we can just go to the next screen. And as you're joining, please keep saying hello. Let us know where you're joining us from. For those who don't know me, my name is Leah Joyner. I am the founder and consultant at HCM Tech Advisory. And what do we do here? We help our clients with system selection, so HRIS, implementations, benefits administration, and ongoing vendor management. So that's what I do. What I wish I knew earlier in my HR career, I can't wait for you guys, first of all, to meet our panelists and hear from their experiences on this topic. So typically at HCM Tech Advisory, we have these summer lunch and learns that we offer beginning in June through October. And typically we're talking about open enrollment or systems implementations. But this time I was thinking maybe we can do something that's a little bit different, a topic that is timely in this day that we find ourselves. And this one is a topic where, as we're working in this space, we're finding a lot of teams that need our support as consultants, internally, as we're working with, internally, whether you work in an industry organization or in the vendor environment. So I can't wait for you all to kind of just hear our experiences. So my hope for you, what is the hope? The outcome from this session is that I wrote down 3 things that I hope you get from this. The first thing is you, first of all, know that you're not alone, right? You're not alone. Use us, number 2, as resources. Please reach out. We're very active on LinkedIn. Reach out to me. I'm going to confess something to you. So I have my boss, my former boss here, who I thought that I needed to know everything when I was leading the HRIS team at my prior company. And I was afraid to tell her that I didn't know something after 20 years of working in this field. So you're not alone. You don't have to know everything. Please reach out. You have resources. So let's go to the next. Yeah, so I would love to introduce our panelists, and I'm just going to say just little things about all of them, and then I'll have them take a minute and a half to introduce themselves. So I don't know if it has Jess joined us yet, or if she has yet. Okay. We will go to Tobias. So Tobias, when I heard Tobias speak, I was like, I have to meet this guy. I was just so amazed by how his candor. And I love just how he works with his team and his leadership style. So I can't wait for you to meet him. Carol, as I said, is a former boss of mine. So Carol, Becky, and Sue are my former colleagues. Um, Carol, we share the same, uh, we're both Leos, 3 days apart are our birthdays. We're very similar, similar in so many ways. And Becky is a former colleague that I love. Just from day one, we started our last job together on the same day, and we just connected, and we've been dear friends since. Same thing with Sue Dunlap, who continues to this day push me. So I'm just so blessed to just have these people in my life and for you all to meet. So without further ado, Tobias, if you could just introduce yourself, let the attendees know who you are and what you hope for them.
Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Tobias Washington. I lead digital HR, which is focused on the associate experience here at Chris's Health. And a part of that is our HR transformation office. And so I'm just super excited to spend some time and appreciate you, Leah, for inviting me to serve in this capacity today. I just hope that everyone has some fun. Like it's hopefully we can kind of break away from the hustle and grind and just have a conversation. So hopefully you learned something new today and have some fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Carol?
Yeah, thanks so much, Leah. Thank you for being here and inviting us and everybody for joining us today. My name is Carol Baxter. I'm the SVP and head of HR for Reviture. Reviture is a technology talent partner. And what that means is we work with our clients to help them plan your technology talent roadmap and then use our hire, train, deploy, and our workforce transformation products to help bridge any gaps. I've been with the company for 9 years. In my current seat, I've grown the company from around 300 to 3,500 employees and helped us expand internationally. Implemented systems with Leah leading the charge. So we went through all of our systems reviews and ultimately, I don't know if I'm supposed to say, we chose Workday. And we went through the Workday implementation with Leah at the lead and lots of lessons learned along the way. I hope that I can share some negative wisdom that helps anybody here. And I'm definitely know that I'm going to be picking up a few along the way too. So thanks so much for having me today. And I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you. Becky?
Well, good afternoon. As Leah said, my name is Becky Miller, and we met, it's been a little over, 8 years ago since Leah and I first met. But I'm the Chief of Employee Benefits here at the Florida Sheriff's Risk Management Fund. I lead a team of 18 in an organization of over 75 employees. And we were created out of statute. So we were a little bit different where we only serve the sheriffs and constitutional officers in the state of Florida. I have over 2 decades of experience in benefit strategy, employee retention, and engagement. And I think my hope today is to have you learn that it's okay, like Leah said, not to know. I've been in the industry now for, again, over 2 decades, and I'm still learning. And I'm learning a lot even from my team and the people that are starting out. How can we pivot that easily and positively in not only your role, but those that support you? So thank you again, Leah, for having me.
Thank you. And Sue, last but not least.
Well, thanks so much, Leah. I am just thrilled to be here with this powerhouse group of HR leaders. I'm Sue Dunlap. I'm the principal consultant and founder of Hitch HR Services. And I have more than 20 years leading HR teams in healthcare, private equity, professional services. And I started Hitch HR to help organizations that are in seasons of growth or transformation. But what we do is simple and powerful. We build the people strategy, structure, and culture that allows businesses to scale. So that means everything from the HR infrastructure and compliance audits to leadership development, mergers and acquisition integration, and optimizing HR technology. So the name Hitch really says it all. It's like the hitch on a truck. We connect you with what you have now to where you want to go, and that makes sure that you've got the right people and systems to pull you forward. And on a personal note, what I love most is helping leaders and teams move from firefighting mode to a future focus strategy, and that's why today's topic really resonates with me. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I can't wait to share some of those stories with you. And since this is all about lessons learned the hard way, I'd love for you to drop like an amen in the chat if you ever looked back and said like, wow, I wish somebody had warned me about that, in HR or whatever field you're in. Because I would say, me too, like that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. So what I hope the main takeaway is that you take at least one practical insight that you can put into action immediately, something that saves you time or builds your influence or helps you navigate a challenge with more confidence. So, look me up on LinkedIn if we're not connected already. I would love to stay connected with you if you're on today.
Thank you, Sue. And with that, I'm going to paste everybody's LinkedIn. You just said what I was going to tell everybody. And if somebody can pin this LinkedIn, so that's everybody's LinkedIn. Please reach out to, actually, I missed Jess. Reach out to all the panelists on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. Again, a lot of us are very active and we're always sharing a lot of information. Please feel free to follow everybody. Okay, so let's start. Our first topic is the career defining lessons and pivots. And I'm going to start this one with you, Tobias, and ask you, what was a turning point that changed how you lead?
Yeah, so again, thank you, Leah. I think I'll share the story that I previously share a lot. And my initial background in HR was from a learning and development perspective. And I remember one of my very first projects, I was so excited. It was I was excited about leading this brand new initiative, bringing all these great people together. And I thought, we would have so many meetings and we would talk about, the L&D strategy and how we were going to go live with this new L&D work and these L&D systems. And I got to the very end of the presentation at our very last meeting, right before we go live. And I brought up this picture, and I remember one of the senior nurses in the room would go, "Oh my God, this finally makes sense. I've been coming to these meetings forever, and you've been talking about L&D, and now I understand that you're not talking about labor and delivery. You're actually talking about learning and development." And I wondered why I was here all this time, and I would leave these meetings so confused. And I learned from that you have to make sure that when you bringing code, you're bringing multiple disciplinary teams together, people from different strategies and different parts of the business together. You got to figure out what their language is and avoid the jargon. Make sure that you're being as clear as possible, because here I am at the go live, ready to take something live. And this LED leader was in the room, labor and delivery nurse, and she's like, I just was so confused. I couldn't understand why you were even leading this project. Like, why were you over the LED? And I remember that she asked me, and I was kind of offended a little bit. She's like, what are your credentials? And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense now. But the clarity that you find when you speak natural and you take all the jargon out of it. And I think HR people, we tend to do that a lot. Like we have a lot of jargon. We have a lot of things that we can just get plain speak. So that's my lesson.
I love that. Use the terms that others understand. Right. What about you? We'll go to you, Carol.
Yeah, no, Tobias, I love that story. I'm laughing over here with you. I'm sure there were a lot of moments when that was finally revealed. That's really great. I don't know if I have as fun of a story as you do, but when I think back on defining moments and what has helped change the way I lead, I do have a moment in my role. I've led a lot of different teams, a lot of different size teams, and something that I was prided myself on, the values of inclusivity and listening and all of these things. And I love to consensus build. So I love to work with a team of highly respected people like Leah. I know everybody's bringing things to the table, and I painstakingly want to hear what everybody in the room thinks about what needs to be done and all of these things, and really drive to consensus. But what I found was that as good intended or well intended as that was, it was just being received as painfully slow. And so, one thing that I've learned is to really embrace, people on my team looking at me, you're the leader, and really, really leaning in and owning my role as a leader and as a decision maker, and moving through that process a little bit more quickly. So I do still lean on my teammates and people that are working on a project with me to bring their lens, but feeling more comfortable with knowing that, and I know in my heart of hearts that this is true, but in those moments where you make those decisions, not everyone's going to be happy with what you decide. As long as you're able to explain how you got there, you really have to be comfortable making those decisions. And so, having that moment helped me move forward more quickly in groups that I led after that, kind of pivotal breakthrough. And so if I can share that with the team and, different people, different places in your journeys, but not to be afraid of that and really lean into your responsibilities and role as a leader.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
All right. No questions yet. So we'll move on to the next topic. And this one is around people partnerships and supplier relationships. How do you navigate tricky internal or external partnerships? And we'll start with you, Becky, if you can share.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think, everybody is different, right? Everybody has different personalities. They've got different ways of work. They have different ways of learning. And I think collaboration is key, right? Especially when we're working on a project, whether it's the implementation of systems. I know you, Leah, and I have talked about that a lot lately, even on our side, as we look at potentially different platforms and people being open to something different. And I think, getting that buy-in as early on as you can, whether it's from, the HR teams are really the ones that are going to be sitting in it, and they're going to be, valuing the work of the vendor partner, but having, again, kind of like that oversight that you provide, Leah, on your side of being able to make sure that everyone is doing each of the things that they need to do for the same outcome that everyone is looking for. And I think for me, kind of that other topic on, kind of what I learned early on is making sure that everyone knows what the outcome is supposed to look like. And I think from there, it's making sure that everyone has that voice, because it not only could be, me sitting looking at it from that high level strategy as that HR focused manager, but also the teammates underneath you that are implementing that work and providing the information over. And so I think, a lot of it is making sure that everyone is in the know and that they have a voice, kind of like what Carol said, is making sure that everyone has a voice and, raising their hand, I don't know what L&D is, and not being afraid to ask that question. We're a team of acronym city, right? Everyone has an acronym for everything. And I think that goes back to that partnership, is making sure that everyone is clear, respectful of everyone's time, right? This could have been an email versus a meeting. And just making sure that there's that collaboration there, but also the buy-in from each side.
And creating that culture where people are feeling like they can ask those questions, especially early on in your career, because you don't really know. I love that. Tobias, we'll go to you on this. If you could just chime in what Becky just said.
Yeah, I love what Becky's sharing in terms of, making sure people know what the outcome is. And I think that so many times we get excited about something, and we don't stop to think that, hey, maybe everyone isn't as aligned or fully adept in this conversation as I might be, because it's so important to me. And so I've studied it to the nth degree, which is me all day. Like, I'm always into a lot of things, and I go into the conversation like, no, you were supposed to be in my head. But sometimes that also means that the outcome could be that we might need to tell someone, hey, you're straying. Like, this is not going the direction that we prefer. And so sometimes there may be a tougher conversation that you need to have. And I think sometimes as HR people, we like to be very nice. And so sometimes we stray away from giving that feedback that says, hey, no, you really aren't aligned to the outcome that we have laid out, right? And so that we talked a lot about, or one thing I've learned is that you have to make sure you give that feedback. You have to make sure that people know when they are going down the path that's a great path, and when potentially as partner or even as an employee boss relationship, either way, or supplier, that I need to give you feedback. And if I'm not giving you feedback, I'm probably not being kind. I'm not doing the kindest thing I can do, and that's helping you know where you are. Because if I don't tell you that, give you that feedback, I'm actually blocking your growth, because I haven't given you the opportunity to make a change that's necessary. And I've had this thought, but didn't share it with you. And I think that's both ways. Like, we have to share the positive things, but we also have to share the things that are opportunities, and just knowing that when it's an opportunity, that it is a kind thing to tell people that here's what I would love to see from you. Because anyone who's on my team, they've entrusted their career to me. They've given they're given their whatever period of time we're connected and together to work together. They are saying, I'm entrusting you as my leader to help me develop. And when I choose not to do that, that is not very kind. So,
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Giving feedback is
yeah.
being kind.
And I think I'll piggyback
team.
off of that, Tobias, too. I think it's kind of like that speak straight conversation. It's being able to, it's not coming from a harsh place. It's coming from, so it's solution focused, it's respectful, and then no one's left guessing. And then I think it's also being able to, pivot quickly, raising your hand, whether it's from the HR side to say, hey, that isn't what we were anticipating the outcome to look like. Or, hey, you know what? I forgot to include this information, and being able to be open and respectful of that, because we all make mistakes, right? I mean, even today, as we've been in our careers for, a long time, we are continuing to do that. I think it's being able to be, like you said, Tobias, almost like that safe space to be able to say, you know what, if I come to that particular person with a problem, I know they're going to help me find a solution as long as I bring it up quickly and, it doesn't impact the total outcome of, whatever that project may be. Because again, if we're not bringing those things up front, it's just going to be, it's going to be impact everything in a negative way. And obviously, we always want outcomes to be positive. Doesn't always happen, but as long as we're respectful and we're, continuing to build that relationship and collaborate, I think that not only feeds on positivity within your own teams, but externally as well.
Love it. Thank you, Becky. So the lesson there is speaking straight and giving feedback is being kind. We have a question in the chat. And this one is from Conchata. I hope I'm saying that properly. Forgive me if I messed it up. What are some good communication models to use when you have multi-generational cultures within the workplace, especially when you're trying to ensure they're all on the same page? That's a great question, which is the number one problem that we have today, right? We have multi-generational workforce in the workplace. Does anyone want to take that one?
Sure, I will. I actually have a multi-generational team. So I have boomers all the way to Gen Z. I actually just hired a Gen Z today, as a matter of fact, earlier today. So we're super excited about that. But, I think it is communicating in, there's that over redundancy of communication. But again, people learn in different ways. And I think and retain in different ways, right? So I know, for me, I'm very tactile. I want to write it down. I want to have my notes, but I also want to follow up in an email. But I'm also using Teams, right? So if, my team on a day-to-day, we're working in the different, whether it's Slack or Teams or emails, it's just making sure that I know for myself and my team, I'm communicating it in the Teams for those that are quick. And then I'm also, summarizing it in an email as well, because I know I have one of my team members loves paper and she kind of lives and dies by paper, and she keeps the best claims log in the entire world, because it's amazing. Because if you need any type of follow-up, it's written down, it's at her fingertips. That's how she works. So great question. And we just make sure that, we're using the technology, we're using the emails, because again, I think being able to write it down for some people like myself, where I want to have it here, but I also want to have it somewhere else housed at my fingertips, is what works for us. I'd be curious to hear what everybody else is doing, including those in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, to keep it simple, like, meet people where they are. The younger generation has a different style than the older generations. And the second thing is, like, just to clarify, don't assume anything. The different generations interpret tone differently. A short email may feel efficient to one, but it might feel curt to another. So really training leaders to check for understanding and ask if that format really works for them, and if it would be, or would it be, would it help if they gave more context? Blending formal and informal styles. Just making sure that formal, obviously handbooks and policies and structured meetings, there have to be formality to those things, but some things don't have to be so formal. Like quick feedback loops or collaboration boards or shout outs and things like that. And then the other thing that's, I think, would be really experimental to try is to do some reverse mentoring. So, you have the Gen Zs and the millennials, they can coach on digital influency, and then the Gen Z and the boomers can coach on institutional knowledge and leadership nuances. So just being able to lean on the benefits of having the multi-generations in one place at one time. So those two-way mentorship programs really help with that cross-generational learning as well. So
I love. Sorry.
I mean, I used to work in a leadership team where half of the room wanted detailed 5-page reports, and the other half wanted a 5-minute, Teams update. So at first I tried to pick one, but it just left someone frustrated all the time. So what finally worked was creating a layered approach, a 1-page executive summary, a short Teams highlight, and a link to a full report. So everybody got what they needed in the way that they needed it. So that's kind of a lesson of just clarity plus choice. That's the main theme, I think, that goes a long way.
Agreed. And I'll close that by saying in the benefits world, we do this all the time without really thinking about it. And we could use that the way we communicate so differently because everybody learns so differently, right? We do videos, we're texting, we're emailing, we're mailing things. We just do so many ways, communicate in so many different ways, which is how all the generations learn anyways. Even face to face, which is how the baby boomers love to receive information. So we'll keep going so we don't run out of time. So we'll go to the next. There's great conversation going on in the chat. No questions. Okay, thank you. I love something that Keyshawn said about she loves the attention of different learning and retention styles. I like VARC, visual, audio, reading. I can't say that last word.
Aesthetic.
Thank you. Okay. This is I love this question. Even for me, like I can't wait to hear what you guys will share on this one topic. One thing you wish you'd known earlier in your career. And we'll start with you, Tobias.
Oh man, me again? Okay.
You again.
So I think I remember leaving one of my previous roles, and I asked my boss at the time for some feedback. I said, "Hey, I'm she's a mentor, still is a mentor to this day." I said, "Hey, what is one thing you would tell me that I should take to my next role?" And she said, "Well, I always felt like you were a little quiet, Tobias. Like I always knew that you had a different point of view, and you would never tell me. Like you wouldn't tell me what you were thinking." And I would be like, "Well, I kind of just like you're the boss, so like I'm just supposed to do what you want me to do." She was like, "No, like I brought you here and I brought you on my team because of your point of view." And back to Carol's earlier point, like, yes, I'm the leader. I have to make the final decision, but I want you to challenge me. I want you to tell me what you're thinking. And at all this time, and I was like mid-career at this point, I'm like, oh, like that's what the previous leader and the one before that probably wanted. And so I love this conversation about what is that thing I really could have known earlier, and maybe I would have been more successful, is that my leaders were looking for my point of view. And you're right, like some generations don't have like my Gen Zers, I don't have to worry. They're going to give me their point of view, and I don't have to dig it out of them. But some of us that are a little bit in a different generation, like we were taught to kind of like respect the authority, and I realized mid-career that my CHRO wanted to hear what I had to say, and really respected that. And so when I came into my new job, I started doing that, and then I got feedback that they loved that about me, and so I just share that with folks. Now, obviously, there's a respectful way to do that, and you don't always just want to walk around disagreeing with your boss and everything that they say all the time. There's a way to do that, but they wanted me to challenge them. They wanted me to offer different opinions and thoughts about whatever it is that they were presenting or asking us to think about.
And
one thing.
I was just telling somebody on my team today, challenge me, challenge me. Sue, what about you?
Yeah. No, and I love I love your story, Tobias. It always brings me back to that phrase of, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then that's a problem. So, I definitely find benefit in learning from, someone who is brand new into their role, and I know that they have much to offer the organization and the department. And so, they are often surprised when you do ask them for their opinion, but I think it's important to do so. And but once they realize that they can speak up, it just allows for diversity and open conversation and thought, just thought leadership and different ideas that may not have even come up before. So it's definitely a two-way street. We're definitely, I think it makes sense to learn from one another. But going back to your question, as far as like what I wish I had learned earlier in my career, looking back, I really wish I had known earlier, is that, HR isn't about keeping the peace. It's about creating clarity. And early in my career, I thought my role was to make everybody happy, the leaders, the employees, even like auditors and different things like that. And so just remember saying yes to a new program just to smooth things over with leadership, even though I knew the rollout would overwhelm our managers. And sure enough, like 6 months later, they were frustrated. Employees were confused, and they were just spending more time cleaning up a mess than adding actual value. And so, what I learned from that experience is that saying yes to everything isn't leadership. The real leadership moment is you respectfully say no, or no, not yet, and here's why, and back it up with strategy. So when you can respectfully, do that, it just goes a long way. And now when I work with leaders through Hitch HR, I tell them HR isn't a department of no, we're a department of here's how. It's about guiding decisions that align with both the business strategy and the employee experience, even if that means having tough conversations in the moment. So if I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it would be, don't measure success by smiles, the instant smiles that you have in the room today. It's really measuring it by the impact that you may have 6 months from now. It's just a story
Thank you,
that,
Sue.
yeah.
Carol?
Yeah, thank you for that. And Sue, I've definitely heard that before, Department of No, because HR and compliance, and I just is such a bad rap. Like, it's not true. It's just not true, but we get a bad rap. So I like that reframing. But yeah, so I kind of play on both of those things. So Tobias, you hit on this, and there was actually a question in the chat too about team and org culture as it relates to challenging things. I love, Tobias, that you had that person early in your career, at some point in your career. I think that the ability to notice when there's an employee that isn't contributing or participating, and then taking the moment, pay attention to that and tease out of them, what is happening, and working with them to build the courage, confidence, and create an opportunity for them to practice that challenging in a safe space, and then letting them do that publicly too, is the leadership role. So coaching, mentoring, growing people in that way is one really important piece. And I had the opportunity to do that with a leader early on in my career, and it made all the difference. But the thing I wanted to say about this is culture does matter. And so we're a global company, and I learned this because I had to do a lot of research on it. But there is high power distance cultures and low power distance cultures. So this is a thing. It's not just a feeling that you have. High power distance cultures typically have high respect for authority. And in that situation, it's just viewed as a challenge to authority. If you're asking questions, it comes from a place of, you think you know better. And that type of challenge can potentially be misconstrued. And then low power distance cultures tend to just want that feedback. And when you're partnering or challenging, it's actually viewed as your partnership and collaboration. So it is a real thing that exists in the world. And we, can't take for granted when we're working in a particular culture that the way that we view that is the same way that other people view that. So it is real, and there are ways of working around it. So, at the same point in time, we have people that feel very responsible for the success of the organization. So what do you do if you find find yourself in a position where you're not quite comfortable challenging or you don't know how, but you can't not do it because for the sake of the project and the success, you have to voice your opinion. What do you do? So the advice is there are ways to do that. And there's, so framing your question as learning. So something like, I want to understand the thinking behind this decision. Can you walk me through the factors? Like, what are the key factors that you considered or that were weighed in making this? Or I think, Tobias, you said this even in your description is offering a different perspective. Like, I see this from a different angle. Would it be helpful if I shared that perspective? Just really being genuinely curious. And not somebody who's there just to poke holes in what's being proposed by the rest of the group. We all know what it's like when you go behind the scenes, you put together a perfectly crafted plan, and then someone shows up and just wants to pop your balloon. Like, that's not fun. So how can you be the one that really is supportive, and it comes from a place of curiosity, learning, and supportiveness, like, because I want to get it right. Those are the things that I've seen people do well in cultures that have maybe different approaches to challenging things that are business strategies. So I wanted to pass those on. I had a lot of fun learning about cultural differences that maybe aren't as obvious, because when you're in your own culture, you may not recognize that there are other things that are at play. And that's global culture, but even as it relates to things like age and demographics and socioeconomic factors, all different kinds of diversity, there, all of those different factors are at play. And so just remembering not to take your lens for granted and really being curious about, what the other group is coming with.
Carol, I'm smiling so big back here because I know exactly what you're talking about, having worked at Reverture and the culture, low versus high power. So I come from, completely different part of the world where authority, like, you don't question, and having started my career in the US, I had to learn the US culture is very different. And I started working in the consulting environment. And I was, this quiet person because that's the culture that I come from. You don't question. But I had a boss. I was so lucky in that my first manager was very understanding and very, she was a coach to me, really, just taught me how to question. She was the first person who ever said, when you come to me, don't just complain, bring me solutions. Right out of college, that's what she told me at age 24.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So she actually admitted to me that she doesn't know everything. Help her, bring solutions in, challenge me, which was so different. Challenge you. Like, I thought she knew everything. So I learned the American culture, and then I go to work at Reverture after 20 years of working. Then I see this other completely different culture that reminded me of my culture, where people are like so respectful of me and they're not challenging me. And I was looking to be challenged. So yes, it's so key to understand the culture, the differences, and how people work together. And it has nothing to do with their skill set. It's just the cultural background. So yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And this one is around leadership and influence. So we'll start with you again, Tobias. How do you earn trust with executives and influence decisions when you don't have formal authority? I know that's a
loaded question.
long,
So I'll be real. I'll be real quick. I really think, I think we're like 15 minutes out. So I usually build relationships, right? And when you build a relationship, I want to figure out what's most important to this executive that has nothing to do with my agenda. And I think sometimes when you start trying to build a relationship and you start trying to build that with promoting your agenda, that's the nature of a relationship. And so when I'm trying to earn the trust of a new executive, I set a meeting with them and I establish in the agenda, this meeting is really for me to get to know you and learn what's important to you. And that's usually I go in with a few questions, and from that meeting, I can understand what's important to them. And then I try to figure out something from that meeting that I can help them with, something very small that I could execute. And they can see that, hey, I didn't even ask this guy to do this. He just picked it up from the conversation and he went and did that for me. And it was amazing. And so now I know that I can, the next time I have a meeting with them, I can start trying to introduce my agenda. And there's a little bit of trust that, hey, this may actually happen. And this is someone that who I have started to develop a rapport with. I, have several examples of that, but I want to be quick. So I would say that make sure that when you're working with executives for the first time, that you just aren't pushing your priorities. You're trying to figure out what their priorities are. And then from there, you can figure out how to align your priorities to theirs.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Sue, could you just take just a few
Yeah,
seconds?
yeah. I mean, it brings me up a quick story, but I'll be quick about it. But like, I'll never forget a time when I was tasked with improving retention, and I didn't have direct authority over the leaders to make those decisions. And at first, every idea I brought up, like everything I brought forward, just landed flat. It felt like, you're HR, stay in your lane. And what changed the game for me was when I stopped speaking in HR language and started speaking in business language, like Tobias was saying, like, we're losing too many employees. I came back with, turnover in this division is costing us, X million dollars annually in recruiting and training and lost productivity. So if we can reduce it by 10%, that's, X money back into the bottom line. And so once I showed the numbers, leaders really leaned in, but I didn't stop there. I paired the data with real employee feedback and, pulled quotes from exit interviews and pulse surveys. And so that mix of hard numbers and human stories really gives influence without needing a formal title, in my opinion. So the lesson that I carry with me now is what I tell my clients. And trust is earned when you connect the dots between the people strategy and the business outcomes. So authority may be given, but influence is built. And in most cases, executives don't need another policy or a program. They need someone to translate what's happening with people into what it means for the business. So,
Thank you.
that's
Sorry,
just something that I think really translates for me.
Carol.
No, Stu, that was great. That was great. I think that it was super insightful. Just to echo that, I also live with, you're a business person first and HR second. So you really have to prioritize the priorities of the business and ensure that all of the HR initiatives are aligning that way. And then when you walk back and you're working with business units, that your message is mirroring theirs. And yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the next. I'm thinking I'm gonna skip to the role of relationships first in case we run out of time because this one is important. And I will start with you, Tobias, again. The role of relationships in your career and leadership journey. What can you share here?
Yeah, I think it's just so important that, I think relationships are just critical, whether that's internal or external relationships. And I think early in my career, I didn't do enough of that. I did not seek out partnerships, and I didn't do things like this where I would show up to a meeting like this and say, that Carol sounded really excellent and intelligent, and reach out to Carol and say, hey, can I learn more about that? Becky was awesome on that point. And so really figuring out that a lot of us, we're all people, and regardless of what company we work for, we all have the same challenges. And so finding that network and realizing that you can never have enough of those relationships, and each relationship will be a little different and bring you value in different ways. So don't shy away from connecting with others. I think there's just a tremendous amount.
Thank you for that, Carol.
Yeah, well, Tobias, we'll definitely connect. So you made it happen.
Yeah.
No, I definitely learned the same lesson. I think, starting off in my career, I had this big long list of things I needed to be done, and they're the tasks, because accomplishing the tasks is what I was able to report on to my leadership, and the things that they most valued was seeing things get done and the numbers and the metrics. But what I learned later is, what I was missing. And I always made time to talk to my people. I love being with people, but it was much more joyful and impactful. And going back to influence and, ability to really connect, it's the people. And, at the end of the day, getting my work done, but not knowing who I was working with was probably going to hinder me and just wasn't as fun. So I've made it a point now to spend, if I was to pick a number, like 40% of the time in my week, or 50%, ideally more, with people, and, getting to understand who they are, what their work is, what their work challenges are. And, that is all informing, my relationships with people, which, yes, they're here at Reviture today, but hopefully extend long beyond then. And so, as evidence with Leah, these connections that we make today will carry us in the future. So really just prioritizing those connections, those genuine relationships. And, that lets me be the most me that I can be here, my authentic, true self, when I am working with people that know me for who I am, and when I know them for who they are too. And it really just creates that environment where we can all open up and, really bring our best selves. So it's just a win-win all around.
Awesome. What about you, Becky? Anything you would want to share?
Yeah, and I think being open and being able to listen. I think sometimes we get caught up in having to be the leader all the time, is really just sitting back and listening, and being an observer rather than someone that's always in that lead space. One of the things that I think we do well in even our weekly, whether we have a weekly or monthly team meeting, is bring an idea or bring a suggestion of how a process could be better, whether it's with their own internal teams or, what do you see that maybe I could do better? Maybe that's more of a one-on-one conversation. But I think, again, it's having the value, knowing the value in other people, kind of like Tobias said earlier, is that their careers are in your hand. And especially for those that are newer in that career, what would you, if you were in their space, what would you want to show them, and where would you want them to be in knowledge that you could give them, and be free about giving them the knowledge that you already have? Because I think that gives them kind of a leg up. It also gives them that buy-in that you're invested in their future. And, I think that builds that value. And then on the other side of it, that's going to help retain them, from leaving, maybe to another organization as well.
Awesome. 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 Okay. So I think we should go back to the other question okay. So it's around system structure and strategy. So for this question, for this topic, the question is, share a challenge that taught you something big, or how you set realistic expectations during a change. Becky, I'll start this one with you.
Sure. So I think for us, from a system aspect, is that, again, it's having that buy-in from everybody and having clear expectations up front, and all of the buy-in from that, and I think it's a collective, right? You've got your HR teams, you've got your vendor partners, you've got your teams internally. Everyone has to have that buy-in and outline of the structure of, again, that outcome that we talked about earlier. And I think, whether it's that weekly meeting and, kind of debriefing, even collectively, making sure that all points are hit and being open to that. And again, I think enabling folks to have that voice is what's most important. Again, I think collaboration is key, and not being afraid to ask the question, and giving your team and the external teams the voice to say, it's okay to say no, but because we always want to find the yes for everything, but finding the comfortability to sit in the no, but being able to bring another solution, maybe because that no doesn't work at that time.
Yeah. Carol, I know you want to share something here too.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I was trying to think of something that could springboard off of that, but Becky, everything that you said is so true. So, it's something I guess that I learned when I'm thinking of system structure and strategy surprises, a lot of things, because implementing new systems and working through global strategy and setup is not without a lot of change. It's just that over communication is so important. The story that I had was a little bit tangential to the topic, but one of the things I learned on the assignment. So I was given an assignment. Bear with me, it's there. I'll make it quick. But I was given an assignment again early in my career to present on the topic of insurance to a sales team, and they had to talk with our new clients about the insurance that we had. And so I went off on this journey to teach them everything that I knew about insurance, because at that point in time, I was learning all about insurance. I was really passionate about the topic. So I made this like 75 slide deck or something ridiculous with like everything that anybody needed to know. And I put a lot of time into it, and I thought I nailed the assignment. And then I went back and shared it with them, and they're like, we wanted like 5 to 10 slides. And so I peeled it all back. I was a little embarrassed, but early career mistakes. But the point is, start small, check in frequently, don't go crazy with things until you get buy-in at the beginning, and make sure that you bring your audience on the journey along with you. So just start small, and over communicate, and make sure that people are checking in along the ride.
Wow. Thank you for that. I'm looking in the chat, and it looks like we have 3. Sue managed Marty. Sue was Marty's manager. What a small world.
Oh my God.
Sue was Marty's manager, and Marty was Stephanie's manager. And they're all agreeing that the current leader, she gives me all that as well. Clear expectations, always showing my value as a teammate, not just someone under me. Wow. So thank you, Sue.
Yeah, I'm
How
not surprised.
crazy is that? Sue, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, no, I would
And
say,
wonderful all at the same time.
yeah, I think it just makes you realize how much power you have in mentorship, and how impactful we all are. Just being able to learn and lean off of each other, and you never know who that ends up translating to later on. So Stephanie, I'm thankful, and I'm hoping that we'll get to connect at some point. I'd love to meet you. The one story I'll quickly share is that, like, I had a situation where I messed up merit increases that were supposed to go out to a subset of employees, and the communication went out, but the paychecks did not reflect those merit increases for 2 pay cycles. And I was devastated as a leader, knowing that something that I had promised these people did not go through. And so I was kind of spilling my guts out to my leader at the time to let them know how bad I felt. And he helped me realize that it's okay. Like, we are human. We do make mistakes, and own it as soon as you can. Own it as soon as possible. And all the great things about you as a leader are kind of like a bank account, right? You've done all these great things. Whenever you do have a slip up, it's like a withdrawal. It's a small withdrawal. It's a small hiccup, but you'll be forgiven as long as you can own up to it, and you can apologize for what's happened, and it all comes back the way it needs to in the end. So those are just some of the lessons I have on that.
Awesome. Okay, we had some spare questions, but a spare topic to talk about. We have a minute, so should we talk about it? Do you all have a couple of minutes? I mean, I know it's like people have meetings, so this is the people assumption. So let me know. Do you guys want to share, or we can end?
I can stay for a few minutes.
Okay.
I've unfortunately got to drop, but
right,
enjoyed this very much.
Thanks.
Okay,
Sue.
So for those who can stay,
Bye,
this is our
guys.
final question. Thank you, Sue. So what this means is the people assumption, and I'll just share my experience. And for you all, if you have to drop off, This is just going to take a couple of minutes, but those who have to drop off, thank you so much for having us. We're going to be sending tomorrow. We'll send a recording of this session. And yeah, thank you. So the people assumption question is a topic on thinking that because we're all in HR, we're all expected to be people. And what that means is there are people who love and enjoy being with people and are extroverts and know the right language to use. And you can be an extrovert and not really enjoy all of that. So I would love for the three of you to talk on this a little bit. I know when I shared secretly with my former boss, Carol, that I wasn't a people person. And she said, don't worry, I'm not either. We're not either. So why don't you go first, Carol?
Thank you, Leah. It feels like such a secret, like such a dirty secret. Like, oh my gosh,
It's
what
secret.
does that mean? What does that mean? It's just there's such a wide spectrum of people. And I came up through some bosses that were highly extroverted, spent every single minute of the day talking to people, and just really got all of their energy from the world, from other people. And then I technically test as an extrovert. I am an extrovert. So one of the models we were talking about earlier is Myers-Briggs, and I still use that today to help people understand differences between one another. Our introverts way over on the other side. And so it takes all of us to run HR. And so one of our best customer service managers spent all day talking to people is an introvert. And she went home exhausted, but she was a wonderful listener. And she really took the time to understand what the problem was, and she gave the best solutions. And so, HR technical people, recruiters, HR analysts, like all different kinds of us. It just, if you're not feeling like you want to spend the entire day with people all the time, it does not mean that you're not an HR person. And I had to give myself that permission. And I was like delighted. And we had a good laugh when you shared that with me too. I was like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It takes all of us. So I appreciate the question. I thought it was a really fun one, a fun call out.
Yeah, and thank you for, being honest with me and giving me grace. Becky, what about you? Anything
I
to
agree.
add here?
Not really. I mean, I love that it's okay to not be the people person. I feel like I'm a people person, but there are some days where I just don't want to people. And I think that's kind of when, and that seems to be when you need to people the most. And I think it's okay to take a break and sit back, because obviously you never want to not be approachable by your team. And I think that's a difficult balance sometimes, especially in HR and in the roles where people are looking to us for feedback and solutions and, leadership. And I think it's okay not to be on, if you will, all the time, but to know that, as long as we are, respectful in our role and knowing that, sometimes we've got to turn it on when we don't want to. It's that continuing to being approachable when we're not in that space. And I think for me, doing the things that I do, I have, as the leader of this team, I have a lot of different roles and I put on a lot of different hats. And I think HR, especially in smaller companies, they have that role of, I do this, and this. It's not just one HR function. You're putting on different hats, and what that looks like, as long as you're approachable, I think it is something that people will continue to respect you for, even if you're not ready to people that day.
Thank you. And Tobias, and I know we've got to go. Anything to share and add there?
No, I just love this conversation because I am a strong introvert as well. And so I love the conversation, but I agree with everything they said. I have nothing additional to add.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We will be sending the recording tomorrow and a short survey for you all. Would love to hear your feedback and any other sessions that you would love to hear from us. So if you can just give us your final reflection in the chat, if you would love to, we would really appreciate that. What did you gain from this? Did you learn something new? Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Leah.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
the
This was
opportunity. Great.
fun.
Super fun.
Thank you guys so
Great to
much.
meet everyone. All right. Enjoy
Take
your
care.
afternoon. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you
All right. Thank
guys.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.